The final moments are the moments that are difficult for a person to predict. Sometimes a person is at the peak of their happiness, and that happiness ends up being the last happiness that suddenly turns, in the eyes of those present, into a serious disaster. In 2025 in Brazil, there was a zoo called Pica in the local dialect. The zoo attracted many tourists because of its beauty and the number of animals it contained, to the point that some people said it was like a small wildlife reserve. On that day, a 19-year-old young man named Gerson visited the zoo. Gerson was obsessed with lions and wanted to become a professional lion trainer. Before he left, he told some people he knew that he was going to the zoo to show his respect and appreciation for the beauty of the lions there. But what he did when he arrived was something no one could imagine or even think about, and it was the thing that made every person who was present at the zoo that day live the rest of their life with a horrifying memory they would never forget. That day, families and people were happy and watching the animals and monkeys. Some were filming them, some were taking pictures as souvenirs, some were filming for social media, and others were sitting with their families. Suddenly, people saw someone climbing a large wall in the zoo. The person climbing was Gerson, and the wall Gerson was climbing led to the lioness enclosure called Leona. When people saw him, they informed the zoo security, but before security could reach him, Gerson had already reached a large tree that led down into the lioness enclosure, and he began climbing down into the enclosure through the tree. At that moment, everyone started recording with their phones, and some people were warning him and telling him not to go down. But Gerson was seeing something else and believed that he could tame the lioness and win her love. As soon as the lioness noticed that a person was climbing down to her, she quickly went toward him and waited for him to come down so she could attack him.
Porra nenhuma, mano. Vai espremer lá os pés dele lá.
The lioness attacked him as if she were attacking her prey in the wild, with her sharp claws and large fangs, and tore him apart with her teeth in front of the people and those present. No one could do anything for him, and no one could enter and save Gerson from between her fangs and claws. People were screaming loudly and hitting the enclosure, but the lioness was not scared at all. One of the zoo employees came and used a fire extinguisher on her. The lioness became frightened and moved away from Gerson. After that, the lioness was tranquilized and Gerson was pulled out of the enclosure. But unfortunately, the lioness had torn Gerson apart, and Gerson lost his life from the moment he was under her claws and fangs. An animal is an animal. No matter how tame or friendly it may seem, there will always come a day when it acts according to its instincts. So do not trust it and do not try to befriend it at all. In 2025, in Mexico, in a city full of people and considered similar to slum areas there, the streets were always crowded because most of the people living there were working class, as they say. On that day at 2:30 p.m., there was a truck carrying liquefied petroleum gas, containing about 13,000 gallons. The truck was leaving the city when it suddenly swerved, overturned, and its tank was punctured. This liquefied gas spreads quickly and ignites easily. Within just seconds, the entire area became filled with the liquefied gas. From a distance, if you looked at the area, it felt as if there was a cloud on the ground. The gas was filmed from many different angles because its appearance itself was eye-catching. The cars that were on the same street were trying to get away from the gas. While they were trying to move away, the gas suddenly ignited and turned into a storm of fire. Because of the power of the explosion, the fire, as you can see, rose high into the sky. That time, paramedics and firefighters had arrived at the scene of the fire. When they began helping the people there, they saw things that could not be described. People were completely burned, their bodies had melted, and some had suffered 100% burns, meaning they were simply waiting for death. Some people said they saw individuals screaming and running while their bodies were still on fire. After the firefighters brought the blaze under control and extinguished the fire, they began counting the victims. At first, they said that 3 people had lost their lives. Then the number rose to 9. The more they searched, the more severely burned victims they discovered. The final number of people who were burned and died reached 29, while 90 others suffered serious burns.
In City, the death toll has risen to 29 from the gas truck explosion. According to officials, 16 people remain hospitalized, while 39 others have been discharged. Rescue and recovery work continues as authorities investigate the cause of the accident.
Always say that things like this should be transported at night, when people are asleep in their homes and the streets are empty. That way, even if an explosion or something similar happens, the damage and the number of injuries would be much lower. Dangerous materials like these should preferably have specific transportation times, during periods when there are no people in the streets. The truck driver survived the crash itself, but after a few weeks, he also lost his life due to the burns he had suffered. In 1992, a very terrifying video was recorded. What makes it even stranger is that the incident involved a skydiver, a sport that I honestly do not understand why people practice. This sport has existed for a long time, and people have been skydiving since the old days, including the 1990s. In skydiving, if a person's parachute does not open, then they are essentially doomed. There is no other option. The impact with the ground is something you would never wish upon anyone. Anyway, in most countries, the minimum age for skydiving is 16 years old, and this requires written permission and a signed consent form from the parents. In Colombia, the ages are different. The minimum age to skydive is 12 years old. In 1992, the parents of a boy named Christian, who was 13 years old, allowed him to go skydiving. Of course, this jump took place at a skydiving school, and during those years, not just anyone practiced skydiving because it was considered a daring hobby. On that day, Christian boarded the airplane and waved to his parents. He was happy, and his parents were happy as well. The airplane climbed to an altitude of 10,000 feet, which is about 3,000 meters. The door of the airplane was opened, and Christian decided to jump. Of course, he jumped without an instructor or anyone else accompanying him.
Ya, por ahí, ya. ¿Qué pasó?
The skydive goes horribly wrong when the primary chute fails to deploy.
¡Reserva!
As you can see in the video, that small dot you can see in the sky is Christian. In the video, you can hear his parents and the people around them shouting, "Open the parachute! Open the parachute!" The closer he got to the ground, the louder they screamed. As he continued getting closer and closer to the ground, everyone kept waiting for him to open the parachute, but the parachute never opened, and he eventually crashed into the ground.
¿Qué pasó?
The skydive goes horribly wrong when the primary chute fails to deploy.
Reserva! Reserva! Reserva!
Spectators scream for the diver to open his reserve chute, but it's too late. They walk away in
Paramedics and Christian's family arrived at the scene of the accident, hoping that he was still alive. And he actually was alive, but his condition was extremely critical. So they carried him and began transporting him to the hospital. His injuries were catastrophic. His body had been completely shattered by the fall, as he had hit the ground at a speed of 100 miles per hour. While they were on the way to the hospital, Christian passed away. During the investigation, it was confirmed that the skydiving school was responsible for his death. It was found that there were licenses and permits that the school did not have, and that the worker who had prepared his parachute had an expired license. When Christian's parachute was examined, investigators found that it had not been assembled properly. Because of that, it failed to open during the jump. As a result, the instructor's license was suspended, the school was fined, and after some time, the school was completely shut down. Christian was a boy who intended to achieve his dream of becoming a skydiver, not knowing that pursuing that dream would become his end. In 2025, in a small town in the state of Sao Paulo, there was a supermarket called Covicia. On a Friday, it was a normal day at the supermarket. People were coming in, shopping, and everything was going smoothly. Suddenly, at around 11 a.m., they heard one of the shoppers scream loudly. People started asking what was happening, and then they heard another person screaming loudly as well. People could not understand what was going on. Suddenly, they looked outside and discovered that a swarm of aggressive bees was coming toward them and attacking people. The bees began stinging everyone. No one knew what was happening or where the bees had come from in the first place.
Jesus amado, nunca vi negócio desse. Tá, a abelha atacando confesa. Olha pra isso, lá de fora, vem. O senhorzinho tá que tá. Jesus amado.
The supermarket employees closed the doors. At that time, there was a large swarm of bees outside the supermarket. There was a 74-year-old man outside, and he became trapped. The bees attacked him, and people were unable to help him. He was stung a very large number of times until he lost consciousness. When the paramedics arrived to take the injured people and help the man, the bees attacked them as well and stung 7 paramedics. With great difficulty, the paramedics managed to carry the elderly man away. However, while they were on the way to the hospital, they discovered that he had passed away from the bee stings. Even though the man had no known allergy to bees or anything similar, the sheer number of stings caused his death. 11 other people suffered serious injuries from the stings. To this day, people still do not know where the bees came from or what caused them to become so aggressive. One of the strangest things I have ever heard, honestly, is going to a supermarket while you're happy, just trying to shop, and suddenly seeing a swarm of bees coming in on you. What happened? What caused it? Nobody really knows. If you made it this far, don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye.